Namaste, my friend. We are learning 40 steps to freedom from peace, freedom from the suffering, not from the peace, and awakening to peace and happiness. So, there will be a couple of introductory sessions, and then we will go directly to the step number 1 to step number 40. Last time, we were discussing about where the happiness is located. So, if we do not understand and know where the happiness is located, and we are searching happiness somewhere else, what is the result? Failure, frustration, fear, long list, suffering, anxiety, duality, and a conflict. So, that is why we are following these 40 steps. But before 40 steps, we should understand the basics. And I directly started with happiness. But even before that, understand the most important uh, journey in the Eastern wisdom. I invoke a simple principle from the teachings of the masters. And these masters are written in a verse form. Verse means compressed zip folder that contains thousands of files. So, why it is important to have learning and listening directly from the teacher, not by studying the book? One reason. You have the book, you are reading it, it has 400 pages. I compressed those verses in explaining them. But if I go on speaking about each verse, the book will have minimum 5,000 pages. Number two, the verse needs to be opened, all the files should be opened in a personalized manner. What is that personalized manner? What is happening in your mind? What is the level of your awareness? Which principle I should invoke to guide you to reach to that state of freedom? Third reason, I can give you many reasons, but we are just understanding. So, third reason, that every verse demands explanation, elaboration by examples. Why? So that your intellect accepts, there is a sense of conviction, and you remove any doubt in that knowledge. Why? Once the mind does not have any doubt, you're not suffering at all. You instantly pick up the principle and you change. You did it. You told me that you repeated the, you kept on listening, and ultimately you found that is the case. And ultimately your suffering ended. The last session we discussed about what we are seeking. We are seeking permanent happiness. What is that? Permanent happiness. Happiness in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, in the night. It is present everywhere. Happiness is present with the people or with no people, in a situation and there is no situation. That is what the permanent happiness. So, what it means? that we have to take our mind to that state, connecting with our real self, so that no situation, person, relationship, environment, time, place can cause any unhappiness. So, what prevents us from having that state of the permanent happiness? Mind is running with ideas of insecurity, fear, dissatisfaction, a sense of frustration and happiness. Where all these experiences takes place? It is taking place in the mind. So we ask the question, is this the way the mind works? Can I not change? Should I not start thinking, speaking, and acting which should reject insecurity, fear, dissatisfaction? That is what the Eastern wisdom is, and that takes you to a higher level of awareness, and ultimately it brings a permanent state of happiness. So, what should we do? We should do the self inquiry. Why we should do the self inquiry? So that we can find out the location of the happiness, peace, love, wisdom. Why we do that? To remove the ignorance, to remove the error in perception. So our master declares, the moment you have any anxiety, duality, conflict, dissatisfaction, insecurity, you are searching happiness where it is not. So it adds to more frustration. And that is what the ignorance is. That is what the ignorance is. So last time, you have to connect these two talks and maybe another two or three more talks. We discovered all source of happiness in the world begins with the likes and dislikes. Because if I like you and I'm with you, so it gives me a sense of pleasure, that is a short term happiness. But if I dislike you, for example, that does not give me happiness, it gives me unhappiness. So the nature of the mind is such that it cheats us. How it cheats it? There are two human beings. You like one human being, that gives you a pleasure or a short term happiness. The second person you dislike, that gives you unhappiness. So, nearness of one person and farness of the other person gives you happiness. So, that is the cause is in the mind. It has nothing to do with any person. After all, these two persons are also created by the existence. Who am I? Who is my mind to create likes and dislikes? So that gives an understanding that the likes and dislikes causes the happiness and unhappiness, and I need to change this mind. Then we went on working. Then we went on the discussion. The source of happiness, is it in the mind? No. The mind causes the stress and the suffering, and the mind causes the pleasure. So mind contains that peace and happiness. And mind also contains stress and suffering. So it means we need to change the mind, but that I will come to that topic later. So we should examine the source of happiness, if it is the mind or in the mind, because we all experiences takes place in the mind. You are watching me, you are listening to me, that is your experience. That experience is taking place in the mind. Are you clear? The source of happiness is somewhere deep within the mind or beyond the mind. Now we are inquiring. The first part is over. This world outside of people, of relationship, of situation, of condition do not contain happiness, peace, love, and wisdom. So it is worthless trying outside. It is useless trying outside peace and happiness. Now, if happiness and are not there in the world, then it may be present in the mind. So let us examine whether are they present in the mind or beyond the mind. So we already understood that part. When we like a thing, it projects happiness in that object or a person. Now, when it projects a happiness in a person or object or a situation or an event, that is a desire. And that desire in ignorance works in three stages. Always remember, you have to examine, you have to observe. Whenever you are surrounded or experience a sense of anxiety, duality, conflict, problem, suffering, fear, dissatisfaction, unhappiness, instantly remember 3P. First is priya, second is PMP. So first is priya, second is mod, third is pramod, PMP. Just remember priya, mod, and pramod. Now we should understand these three terms. So when the mind desires any object, any person, any situation in the world, desire means you have started thinking, my son doesn't give me happiness. You have started thinking. Or if my son will come, that will obviously give me the happiness. You have started thinking. That is P, first P. So what is the mode? The second, PMP, I told you the three terms. Mode is that now you have a presence of your son before you. So the first you think that this object, this situation, this person will give me happiness, so that thinking gives you little happiness. When that object in a person is present before you, it gives you little more happiness. And now you communicate, and if the sun communicates according to your mind of likes and dislikes, that gives you more happiness. Use that same example. You like pasta, so you start thinking of the pasta. So when you think, you have a desire for the pasta, so that desire and thinking for the pasta gives you little happiness. Now you call the restaurant, or you ask for it. So now you possess the pasta. The pasta is just in front of you. That gives you little more happiness. And when you eat it, that gives you more and more pleasure. So the 3 degrees, 3 levels, that is working in the mind because of likes and dislikes. Because of likes and dislikes. My friend, pay attention to your own mind. Mind is the cause of the suffering, and mind is the cause of all the suffering. So first, it started with thinking, and thinking started with the likes and dislikes. You don't have any likes and dislikes about me, so you are happy always with me. Isn't it the fact? Check it. You have a sense of love, you have a sense of care, you have a sense of affection towards me. That is different from the likes and dislikes. So, what happens when the mind claims that I am the source of happiness and unhappiness? If you like an object, it will give you happiness, and if I dislike, it gives me unhappiness. That like has a clinging to the attachment, and that attachment causes the desire, and then we start living our life with the PMP in the personal life, professional life, social life, family life. PMP. First P, priya. I desire with the likes or dislikes. I keep on thinking. So after thinking creates a desire to possess or own and bring the nearness, that is M, moda, and pramoda. Now that person or object in front of me, and I hope that it will give me happiness, but it doesn't happen all the time. So the conclusion is no object, person, or situation gives me happiness or peace. Second conclusion, the mind is not the source of happiness. Mind is only the source of happiness because of PMP. Priya, Mod, Pramod. In a simple term, Priya thinking of an object, Mod possessing that person or an object. Possessing means nearness and etc. Or possessing an object. I explained you about the pasta and Pramod. Pramod is that I am enjoying the presence or eating. After possessing, I own it. What we are doing? We are doing a self inquiry. Why we are doing a self inquiry? We want to know where is the locus of peace and happiness, love and wisdom. Why? Once we understand the locus of peace and happiness, love and the wisdom, then whenever we are in stress, we will search that location. We will not anywhere where the peace and happiness are not located. And we are very clear it is not located. It is not located in the world of people, place, time, object outside. Find out. Inquire. Have a conviction. Then what is the role of the word? We will come to that. We will come to that later. When we start the step number 1 out of the 40 steps. So keep that question in your mind. So we are doing a self inquiry. What exactly is this self inquiry? It is a self awareness program. So we raise our level of awareness. What it means, the thought is pulling me outside for peace and happiness, and I'm aware I hold it back. I tell my mind, why are you searching there where it is not? You simply think in that way, and the mind becomes clear. But if you leave, thinking continues, and then the thinking continues with the strong likes and dislikes. It causes the attachment, and attachment causes the desire, and desire leads to delusion, and the delusion leads to ignorance, and ignorance causes the suffering. These terms will come again and again in the journey. And another reason for our stress and suffering is the emotional bondage. So self inquiry results into an emotional freedom. Third factor in the self inquiry is the mental transformation program. Now the mind is not working on me, I'm working on the mind. What it means? The mind is the likes and dislikes, and then it thinks and it starts thinking and it gets obsessed with the thinking. The mind is working on you. And suddenly you become aware, oh mind, why are you thinking? The peace and happiness is not outside, it is done. So mental transformation, it comes stages by stage, step by step. We are deeper. So what we are doing, how we are doing now, question is by listening and learning. from the teachings of our great masters who lived. There are 3,000 masters, 3,000 texts who have passed on this wisdom again and again and again. Every master confirms that this is the way, this is the method, this is the practice. So I'm reminding you again that anytime you have anxiety, duality, fear, frustration, let the mind think that this world do not contain peace, happiness, love, and wisdom. First thing. Second, mind is also not the source of happiness. Sometimes it becomes happy because of like, sometimes it becomes unhappy because of dislike. So it means the mind is not the source of happiness. So, but it's a daily experience. I feel happy. I feel calm. I feel peace. So from where it is coming? Where it is coming? What is it means? What is the source of the happiness? So there is only one possibility, that is beyond the mind. And what is beyond the mind? That is our real nature. We will go deeply. We will find through understanding here is the real self in these 40 steps. At present, we are just having an introductory understanding. So, our master gives one example. It says that what it means by beyond the mind. So, master tries to explain through a metaphor. What is metaphor? Metaphor is a simile. You use the metaphor to understand and relate it to the real self. So, what is that metaphor? The real self is like sugar. The nature of the sugar is sweetness. Clear? Nature of the sugar is sweetness. Now you put the sugar into a small jar and a big jar. The sugar remains sweet. It does not change. Even if you put the sugar, even you put the sugar into a jar, earlier you had put the salt into it, the sugar does not change its nature, it remains sweet. You bring the sugar near to the chilies, jalapenos, hot. Sugar says, I will remain sweet, no issue. Because my nature. Are you getting it? My nature is sweetness. My nature is sweetness. You mix it into the water, add lemon into it. You don't miss the sweetness in the water also. No, you get a different taste of lemon plus sugar, but the sugar is already there. You put the sugar anywhere, in any condition, in any situation, to any person, it remains sweet. So this is a metaphor. Now relate this metaphor to your real self. That is the nature of the real self, is of the nature of peace, happiness, love, and wisdom. It cannot be undone. You cannot undo the sweetness of a sugar. You cannot undo the essential nature of real self. That real self is present in every human being. Why we are doing this self-inquiry? To find out where is this real self, how the real self can be realized. So once we remove the misconception, thought, speech, and action through the mind that is seeking peace and happiness outside in the world and in the mind itself, that is why we are doing the self inquiry. So, real self is what? Real self is me. Real self is you. Really? So, am I the source of happiness? Yes. Am I the source of peace? Yes. Am I source of the knowledge? Yes. Am I the source of love? Yes. Think. If I'm the source of the peace, like the sugar which contains the sweet, yes, the sweetness is already there. But then why? You mind me ask? Because my mind is running outside in the world for the sake of peace and happiness. It is running, then it frustrates itself, thinking again and again why I don't find the happiness. It is thinking in the mind, but it is beyond the mind. One reason. Second reason, what do you think you are? Are you the body? No. So as long as you think you are the body, you will continue to suffer. As long as you think you are the mind, you will continue to suffer. You are real self, pure consciousness. We are not the body, we are not the mind. Mano buddhir ahankara chittani naham na cha shrotra jivhai na cha ghrana netre na cha vyoma bhumir na tejo na vayu chidananda rupa shivoham shivoham. So the master has written this poetry, this verse. So simple translation is that understand by the self-inquiry, reach to the knowledge. What knowledge? I'm none of these five elements, I'm none of these five sense organs, I'm not the five motor organs that constitutes the body and the mind. So who am I? I'm the pure consciousness beyond body and the mind complex. That is the journey of the self inquiry. We possess the body, but we are not the body. We possess the mind, we are not the body. We possess the car, but we are not the car. You own your home, but you are not the home. You possess your phone, you are not the phone. So now think of it. No, that we will come later, step by step. I'm just giving you a flash of that understanding. That I possess the body, answer is simple yes, I'm not the body. I possess the mind, yes, I'm not the mind. Do I possess intellect? Yes, I am not the intellect. Do I possess ego? Yes, I am not the ego. Do I possess thought? Yes, I am not the thought. Then who am I? I am the real self. What is real self? Real self is pure consciousness. When we claim we are the body and the mind and the intellect and the thought and the ego, that we are not, that is a great blunder done by the mind, and the blunder results into anxiety, duality, and a conflict. So now the next question comes that how to recognize the essential and the non-essential nature. That is the journey of the self-inquiry. So we are asking a question that how to recognize the false self and the real self, or essential or the non-essential nature. We are very close to what is false nature. So what is the characteristics of the false nature? The false nature, anything that is constantly changing is non-essential, is false. And anything that is unchanging That is essential. That is our permanent nature. Permanent simply means that it is not changing. Two things: it is not changing and it is all pervading. And what is false nature? That is constantly changing and that is local. That is not all pervading. Your body, sitting at home listening to me, is localized. So, first reason to understand that, and second reason, I'm not the body. Second reason to see that I'm not the body, because body is constantly changing. First reason, that I possess the body. What I possess, I cannot be. No, no, you are making me understand what I have to think in that way. No, no, I do not understand. Simple way to understand. You can find the sugar in the form of a sugar cube, in the form of a powder, in the form of granules. Clear? Different shape in the form. Names also. There is no difference in the sweetness of a sugar. Whether it's a cube, it's a granule, it's a powder. Or you can find in a pouch. Means what? It is independent of the body, mind, intellect, ego. It's just the beginning. We are going for an introductory talk. And once we start, how to achieve that in 40 steps. That is the journey. So are we clear? The non-essential is a false nature. That is, first thing is constantly changing. Second thing, it is local. It is not all pervading. Real self is all pervading. It is pure consciousness. We will also understand that what are the other characteristics that differentiates between real and the unreal. I will repeat again that non-essential. What is false nature? That it means it is constantly changing and it is local. And when we use that local, force that local to give me peace and happiness, it is not possible. Like pasta. Example, you like pasta, for example, gives you happiness. So I say, okay, take one plate. Do you like it? Yes, I like it. I enjoy. Ah, you enjoy it. Take second plate. I push you. Okay, you take the second plate also. No, no, no. I said, no, take the third one also. And now you get angry and upset. Why are you pushing me? No, but the problem is that the pasta is giving you happiness. Eat more. Why are you angry? So what about the pasta? Pasta is local. It is changing. So the mind also is changing. The first plate, mind says, okay, I enjoy. Second plate, you say, okay, I like it. Third plate, you refuse. Same mind. Same mind. So are you clear? The mind is not the source of happiness. The world also outside is not the source of happiness. Short term pleasure is okay. Are you clear? So when I'm clear, I wake up in the morning, I had a thought about a person, and I become aware that person is not the source of the happiness. Now you talk to that person. So you are never upset. You talk to the person because of some project, because of some ideas you are sharing, because of some work that you want to get it completed. That is what. But you are not obsessed with the happiness with that person, whether it is your son or a daughter or any relation or a stranger or anything. The mind is clear. So we are still understanding, are we the source of happiness? We are now very clear. The source of happiness is not outside in any object, person, thing, event, or situation. But the mind is running outside constantly to seek happiness. Why mind is running outside? Because it is seeking happiness in the world. But what is the reason? It is because of the ignorance, misunderstanding, wrong notion. So I have to remove these wrong notions from the mind. Are you clear? I'm repeating again and again, so this time you don't miss even a single thing. So Eastern wisdom shows us step by step to drop those thoughts and feelings and emotions and ideas in the wrong notions that causes the emotional dependence. So when we have an emotional dependence, it causes the intellectual paralysis. Ego becomes strong. You say, no, I have done this to you and I'm totally frustrated. Why you are frustrated? Because you have done something to the person, maybe your son. But the son is not interested, so you are frustrated. Why you are frustrated? Because you are seeking happiness there. Why you are seeking happiness? Because you gave something, you helped him something, so you expect minimum happiness. Why you expect happiness? Did you tell your son that I am helping you to seek happiness? We never say to anyone. Why? Because it is not there. Are you getting it? What should we do to find, think, and speak and act in happiness all the time? We have to find the real self. Real self is pure consciousness. It is of the nature of peace, happiness, love, truth, and wisdom. It is all pervading, I told you, it is unchanging. So, in the midst of all the changes taking place, we have to find that entity which is unchanging, which is all pervading. Remember this. Our Master gives us those deeper understandings so that we recognize what is unchanging. We recognize that the peace and happiness remains present all the time, in all locations, with everyone, like the sugar. I gave an example, metaphor of a sugar. So here comes another issue that we should understand, why the mind does not want to change, even after listening again and again. That was your question before. I told you all experiences takes place in the mind. So experiences of the pleasure with having a smartphone, a car, and a home, and the food, it's our normal experience. We cannot deny the fact that we are not happy with some object, with some time with a person, with some time with the foods, with some time with the clothes. So when we understand what causes the happiness in the mind when it comes in contact with the object and a person, we have understood what causes the stress and the suffering when we come in contact with a person or an event or a situation. But now we are trying to understand, still we find the pleasure in us. I'm talking to you, I'm happy with you. You're happy with me. So that is a experience in the mind. So, is this experience of the happiness present? Is this experience of the happiness present in the mind, or the source of happiness is in the mind or someone else? Do you know? I have already answered. Can you think of it? That is why the problem comes. And that is why we have to repeat PMP. PMP is the cause of experiencing happiness. That is the only one cause. P means priya, means when we see an object, we think of an object, it gives us a stage one of happiness. Minimum. Then we possess that object, it gives me a greater amount of happiness. When we own that object, we enjoy being in contact, like pasta in contact, we get the greatest amount of the happiness. But that pleasure remains for a while. That pleasure does not last for long. Why it does not last for long? The mind is not the source of happiness. One example, one understanding. Now we should understand what is pleasure. Once you understand what is pleasure clearly, the life is going to change. Otherwise, the mind, even after listening, having a conviction, it falls back into ignorance. Mind says, after all, after all, I eat pasta, I get pleasure. I wear this new dress, I get pleasure. I drive this car, I get pleasure. I live in this situation, gives me the pleasure. So I'm repeating the question again. That mind does not want to leave due to the impressions, indelible impression in our mind, due to the habit, due to the instinct, due to repeat contact with the people, the object, and the thing, and the food. They say, but I experience the pleasure. So we are trying to find out the source of pleasure that we experience in the mind. Is it happening in the mind? If it is, then what it is and how it happens. You know, action and reaction equal and opposite. Keep that in your mind. Someone comes to you and says, "Oh, I hate you," and ultimately you are upset, and then the same person says, "No, no, I'm extremely sorry. I never meant that. I love you. I care you," and he shows all kinds of expression, and ultimately your mind changes. So now you're happy. Before you were unhappy, and now you're happy. We are trying to find out the very cause of happiness that we experience in the mind when it comes in contact with the world outside, whether it's a person, object, or pasta, or any situation or any condition. Are you clear? Pay attention. So now we go back and understand PMP. What is P? The first P is the priya. Priya means perception contact. I think about that object or a person whom I like, so perception contact gives me the pleasure. Then possession contact gives me some kind of a pleasure. And then experienced contact with the pleasure. I'm eating pasta, it gives me an experience of a taste in my tongue that gives me the third level. Second level is the possession contact. I have the pasta. that gives me, still it is not in actual contact, but still it gives me happiness. Why? Because the first reason. If you do not understand, ask me maybe a million questions. That understanding is required. So now say the what happens, the perception contact. You go to the, you while you're watching TV, you see some dress, the mind keeps on thinking, so it's a perception contact. So when it keeps on thinking, then what happens? Then you have a desire. Are you not? Sometimes it happens. Oh, let me buy this food that I saw on the TV and taste it. So desire is fulfilled. So whenever we have desire, after perceiving and thinking about an object because we like it, it creates an hesitation in the mind. What did I say? Pay attention. Every desire mind is seeking in the world outside causes some kind of an hesitation. That's why the mind keeps on thinking. That is an hesitation. Are you clear? PMP, the first one. For any object, for any situation, for any condition. Any time the mind wants something, it likes, it causes a desire, that desire keeps on prompting me to take some action. That promptness is an hesitation by thinking and feeling that I must have it. I want, I want, I want. For example, of a coffee, your perception, pleasure. What is perception? I want coffee, I want coffee, I want coffee, I want coffee. The mind is thinking, but I'm not aware. So that I want, I want, I want, I want has already triggered the mind. It causes the hesitation. It prompts you to act, to go to the kitchen, prepare the cup of the tea, and bring it, sit on the couch. But pay attention. That is what happens when we like something, some object, some person in the world, and we keep on thinking, now we want to move to the second, to possess or to own. So, in between that, there is already a tremendous amount of hesitation which has become so much a habitual, mechanical that we don't recognize. Did I say perception pleasure? So, the perception pleasure takes place in the mind, you go on thinking about it, that very repeat thinking has already agitated the mind. Now you possess it, your hesitation is less. Now you enjoy, experience it, that very hesitation is gone. So it is the pleasure is the absence of hesitation. The pleasure, in fact, is not there in anything. That is what I want to convey to you today. Anything in the world. So, Master says that I experience pleasure, which is a short term happiness, in contact with any person, situation, activity, object, because the agitation caused by the desire and the thinking comes to an end. That pleasure is the absence of hesitation in the mind caused by the thinking. It's not the real pleasure. Are you getting it? Fact is that there is no pleasure at all. There is no happiness when we come in contact with any person in the world outside, of people, of place, of ideas, celebrating Christmas, It's coming in contact with an event, meeting a person, coming in contact with a person that my mind likes and craves. That very liking and craving and the repeat thinking is hesitation comes down. It is the absence of hesitation. Are you getting it? We experience happiness in eating pasta, no doubt. That is an experience in the mind. But because the mind has already created an impression through the perception, through the unconscious thinking, so when you possess and own and they come in contact, that hesitation completely gone, that is the name of the pleasure in the world outside. Try this out. You take coffee, very good. So one day you wake up in the morning, don't take coffee and check the mind. The mind says, I want, 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 I want. And you decided not to take it, and the mind says, I want, I want, I want, I want. Is it not an hesitation in the mind? Think of this. Similarly, I expect, I expect, I expect, I expect a minimum peace, minimum courtesy from the other person. Now the other person is not courteous. What happens to you? Hesitation goes on the peak, pleasure is gone. The other person is courteous, happiness comes, and it is gone. Happiness, pleasure. I'm just differentiating the pleasure and the happiness. Pleasure that my mind perceives coming in contact with any person, object, thing, word is due to absence of hesitation in the mind. It is not the real pleasure. That is why I gave you an example. I gave you first plate of the pasta, you say very good. Second plate of pasta, you say good. Third plate pasta, you'll fight with me. No, what the hell you're giving me? I'm not interested. No, no, but you told me that you like pasta. That gives you pleasure. So that's why I'm offering you. You say no. I don't want. So is it very clear? Pasta does not contain happiness, but I impose my happiness. It's a perception. Second is possession happiness. Third is experienced happiness. So perception happiness is first P. And M is a Sanskrit word mod. So I said it perception, possession happiness. So that dilutes the hesitation. Now I already have it. Maybe I will take the pasta in the evening, not now. Possession happiness. So your mind is clear. It's not thinking too much. It does not want to inquire. It does not want to run. I already have it. I'll take it in the evening. And experience happiness when that object, the pasta, comes in contact with your tongue. So hesitation goes away. Pleasure is fake. But I experience pleasure. You did not answer that question. That pleasure is a manifestation coming from the real self. Absence is okay. Now, absence of hesitation. So, once the mind stops hesitation, mind becomes calm and relaxed. In that mind, that real self puts some pleasure there, and that is how we experience the pleasure. So it is all coming from inside. It has nothing to do with anything outside in the world. That is how we say the peace and happiness are our essential nature. Did you get it? But the mind is outside, claims in ignorance. But now the same mind returns. Same mind says, because of wrong perception, because of ignorance, because of wrong notion, it says, no, pasta gives me a happiness, coffee gives me a happiness. So it is the ignorance. What to do with the ignorance? We have to do the self inquiry to remove that ignorance. Desire, thinking, desire causes the hesitation, seeking something other than me. Means outside. And did you understand these 2 points? Let me repeat it again. First point, PMP. You can also understand the 3P in a way. Perception happiness, perception pleasure. Perception means thinking, having an idea, having likes and dislikes, and the mind is working, thinking, subconsciously, habitually, instinctively. And possession happiness. Now, whatever I'm thinking about an object or a person, that is with me, near me. In that is what the possession happiness, and then experienced happiness. PPE. Now that person or that object comes in contact, so that is how the mind in ignorance feels I am happy with that object, with that food, with that thing. But the fact is that hesitation of the mind due to perception, due to possession, due to experience comes down. And the real self comes, enters into the mind, it gives you the pleasure. So actually that pleasure, even the short-term pleasure, coming from the real self. Why it is coming? We are very clear it is not coming from any object outside, any person outside, any event outside. And we are very clear mind is also not the source of pleasure. Mind is also not the source of happiness. So it has to come from within. After all, there must be some source. That is what I have explained in the second chapter, second topic. You have to go through it again and again and inquire, analyze, reflect on it. When we closely examine daily eating, what we like, meeting a person we like, creating an event we like, we find these 3 stages of pleasure. Mind claims pleasure in the objects of the world caused by the ignorance because of perception, because of perception pleasure, because of possession pleasure, because of experience pleasure, the mind cannot realize that hesitation has stopped. Absence of hesitation in the mind resulted into an experience of the pleasure coming from the real self, not from the world outside, not from the mind. So we will understand the third part of this journey. What is experienced by the mind, either hesitation or pleasure, both are wrong. Both are false. And that causes the problem in our life. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Introductory part. We have yet to move to the step number 1. Why I put these main topics in the beginning? So that the mind listens to it with a mental maturity, with a clarity, with the right perception, so that those steps becomes easy for us to understand.